Hey guys, how's it going? I'm Sydney from PhoneDog.com and welcome to the show. This is our weekly live podcast that we have every week here on Ustream, and we also broadcast it to our Facebook page and also PhoneDog.com. I don't know if you guys know, you can actually watch it there too. So today we have some pretty interesting topics. If you are watching this on YouTube, you can watch the recording of it. So if you're watching the recording of it on YouTube, then you can check out the description down below the video, and I'll have a timeline of all the topics that we discuss, so you can skip around and listen to the topics that most interest you. But we do have some pretty interesting topics today. I'll be in Ustream, and so if you guys want to join the chat and ask questions or kind of just leave your comments as I discuss each topic, that'll be great. But as you can see, we have probably the main topic, the biggest thing that happened this week was the Droid Bionic release. And, it was actually kind of it was a slow week, but at the same time, it wasn't. I think it was just, we were so used to, it's been so busy the past couple of weeks that, this week it seemed like it was slow. But actually, a lot happened this week. We had the Droid Bionic release finally, like I said. More lawsuits and drama with Apple. And then, of course, AT&T and T-Mobile merger. There's always updates with that. So we do actually have quite a bit to talk about this week. And so last week was my first week with new microphone and improved audio quality. I actually got a couple of comments from people saying that the audio quality was fine before, like without the microphone, and it was okay if I didn't want to use one. So I did the recording, and then I watched it because I watch the podcast every week because I have to in order to create the timeline. And then I was like, oh, okay, I'll compare it to weeks prior when I didn't have the microphone, and I listened to about 3 seconds, and I could already tell it was like night and day. So the microphone is definitely staying. I did get a couple of suggestions to get a pop filter, which I kind of already knew would be a problem. So that's on its way. It's not here yet. So in the meantime, I'm going to be doing it without it. Hopefully it won't bother you guys too much. So let me head over to Ustream, and I don't think we'll need any moderators for now. So we should be okay. But we will start with the Bionic. It was finally announced. Now and launched too, right? It launched September 8th, which was yesterday. So finally launched. We've been waiting for this thing ever since the beginning of the year. If you remember the Atrix that came out on AT&T, so long ago, that was basically the AT&T version of the Bionic. And so, you remember when that one came out. And so we've been waiting ever since then to get the Verizon version, which is the Bionic. And tons of leaks just in pictures and redesigning it and changing features. And it's just been just so much hype about this phone. In fact, I can't remember, the last time I can remember a phone having this much hype, it was with the HTC Thunderbolt. And, that was a great phone, but, I think once it came out, we kind of realized that it wasn't worth all of the hype, just because, there were already other phones out that were, a little bit better maybe, or we knew of phones coming with a dual-core processor. So that one was a little bit of a letdown, or at least I don't think it really deserved that much hype. However, the Bionic, whatever it was leading up to the Thunderbolts, the Bionic is like times 10. There's just been so much hype, and I think it definitely deserved it. This is easily going to be one of the best phones on the market right now. It's easily going to be the best phone on Verizon for the time being, but will easily be one of the best phones on the market. 4G LTE, 1 gigahertz dual core processor, a 4.3-inch QHD display. Now, different people have different opinions on, based on the technology that Motorola used, for the display. Some people will like it, some people won't. But still, QHD display, high-res display, 4.3 inches. The camera, it's an 8-megapixel camera, but it captures 1080p HD video. And Aaron actually posted a video sample using the Bionic's camera. We'll get onto that a little bit later. So all of that plus Android 2.3.4 and Motorola's updated UI, which we don't have an official name for yet. I don't know if we are going to get an official name for it. So this is definitely, a lot of hype about it, and it definitely deserves it. If you are on Verizon and you're, wondering which phone should I get, the Bionic is definitely should be number one on your list if you want an Android device, and if you like Motorola devices. I personally don't really like Motorola devices, but just as kind of a general blanket, I'm going to say that the Bionic should be one of the top choices for anyone on Verizon. I see someone mentioned in the Ustream comments about the Bionic and its comparisons to the Droid 3. It's basically, and I think Aaron brought this out in his first impressions article, it is basically like the Droid X2 and the Droid 3, except, as this person mentioned, without the physical keyboard. So we'll take a look at a picture here of the Droid Bionic. And so you can see it's actually gone through quite a redesign, because it's very different from the Atrix, which is what it looked like originally. But you can see at the bottom there, it still has that same sort of chin that the Droid 3 has. Then it has that camera hump. Now, the nice thing about the Bionic, as opposed to like the Droid X2 that also had that camera hump, is that it's not as pronounced. It's not like this block on the back of the phone. Basically, Motorola's done a nice job of kind of making it curve a little bit more, so it's a little more subtle. So that's one little thing that I appreciate. But overall, you can see it kind of looks a lot like the Droid X2. But the nice thing about this is that it's a 4G device. I think when the Droid 3 came out and the X2 came out, they were amazing devices, flagship devices, but there was still that disappointment there where it wasn't a 4G device. And I think people really expected that, not just because of the spec sheet, dual core processor, high res display. You would, think, okay, it's a super phone, it's going to have 4G. Not only because of that, but also because it's given this Droid branding, which is, really makes it, Motorola and Verizon's one of their flagship devices. And so 4G kind of seems like a no-brainer. And so whenever we didn't see it, Droid 3 and Droid X2 are still amazing devices, but it was kind of a letdown there. So the Bionic, personally, I can't think of anything about this device that would be a little bit of a letdown. There's not really a whole lot of sacrifices that you have to make, which is nice. I think, there's a lot of devices that come out that are super phones, but it seems like you always have to make some sacrifice for it, whether it's, for some reason it has a physical keyboard, even though I don't want a physical keyboard, or maybe, it doesn't have 4G, or, there seems like there's always some sacrifice that you have to make, but the Bionic really, I think, lives up to all of the hype. So Aaron got he got a Bionic from the Verizon PR people, and he's been using it. He did an unboxing. You can check that out. He posted his first impressions, and just a couple of things that I took note of from his first impressions article is that he said it's not as thick as he expected it to be. And this was something that even I was under this impression after seeing all these pictures and the leaked pictures. It looked very thick and bulky, and it is, to a certain extent, because it's an LTE device, and so, for the time being, the LTE radio still kind of adds a lot of bulk to phones. So it is a thick device simply because of that. But as Aaron brought out, it's not as thick as he thought it would be. In fact, it is the thinnest LTE device on Verizon, and he said it's the thinnest 4G device. I don't know if that means out of all of the 4G devices or just out of Verizon's 4G devices, but regardless, that was something that surprised me, and I've heard a couple of other reviewers and editors say the same thing, that it looks bulky, but it's really not. It's a lot thinner than you would think. He also talked a little bit about the battery life. Now, this is one thing you could, I mentioned that there weren't any negatives, like you don't have to make a lot of sacrifices for this device. This might be one thing, the battery life. LTE devices obviously have some of the worst battery life on the market. I mean, Android already, causes a device to just suffer in terms of battery life, but then you throw LTE on top of that, and it struggles even more. So that might be, a problem for some people. But Aaron commented on his use with it, while he had it in the day or so that he'd been testing it out. He said whenever he turned it on around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and the battery was at 70% when he turned it on at 3 p.m. It was now he went through an entire day starting at 3, sending text message, sending tweets, emails, and making a few phone calls. And he said the phone made it into the evening and then powered down around 12:35 a.m. So around midnight. So 3 p.m. to midnight, which is still not, excellent, but it seems like it might not be as bad as other 4G LTE devices on the market. That could be partially due to the fact that the Bionic's battery is huge. It's a 1735 milliamp hour battery, so definitely a huge battery. So that should help with the battery life. I'm checking Ustream because I want to see if I just want to check, make sure if we need any moderators or anything, but I think we're okay for now. So I mentioned earlier that Aaron also did an HD video, or posted an HD video sample using the Bionic. Now the Bionic captures 1080p HD video. It's an 8 megapixel camera with a dual LED flash, but in terms of video, it does capture full HD 1080p. It also has a front-facing camera, but if you watch this video sample, and you can go watch it, it's on our YouTube channel. We've also posted it on PhoneDog.com. For the time being, right now it's on the main page. But the audio and video quality is absolutely amazing. It just is. And I think, because he does HD video samples with most of the super phones or most of the smartphones that come out that, that is kind of a feature that they're touting. So, we've seen, video samples from several different devices, and I've seen some with, great video quality, but terrible audio quality, or, okay video, okay audio, awesome audio, terrible video. We've seen kind of like hit and miss here and there, but the Bionic, first of all, audio quality was excellent, which is difficult to do on a smartphone because it's just not made, it can be made for capturing HD video, but sometimes the microphone is just not that great of a quality. Motorola has always had a good reputation with having great sound quality, whether it's with, videos or in making calls. So that was kind of not a surprise, the fact that the audio quality was so good, but it was excellent. But the video quality was also very, very good. Now, granted, there was a little bit of stability problems because it is a cell phone. So, your hand might be a little bit shaky. And so it is kind of shaky at some points. But for the most part, audio and video quality, it was just absolutely excellent. I was blown away. You can check out that video again, and see for yourself. So, the Bionic, I think for me personally, the only things that I really don't like about it, and this is just personal, I don't think, obviously this isn't going to be, everyone's opinion. I mentioned earlier that I typically don't like Motorola devices just because of the hardware design and also because of their custom UI. I personally don't like the custom UI, but I know not everyone feels that way. I think Motorola's UI is Aaron's personal favorite, so not everyone feels that way. So personally, I don't know if I would be interested in getting the Bionic, even though I could easily add, Launcher Pro or ADW or, basically change it however I want to. But also I just happen to not like Motorola's hardware. But, like I said earlier, if you are in the market for a smartphone right now, the Droid Bionic is definitely one to look out. If you're on Verizon, the Droid Bionic is probably the one you should get. Now, we have other phones coming down the line, like we just heard more about the Stratosphere. We're hearing more about the Nexus Prime, which is coming, or supposedly coming to Verizon, the HTC Vigor. So those are coming within a couple of months, and the question is, will the Bionic still be able to compete with those? I definitely think it will. I don't think, when you compare when you compare the Droid Bionic to something like, for example, the Nexus Prime, and I'll go to the spec sheet for that, and we'll just compare them. So the Nexus Prime will supposedly have a larger display, so that's, personal preference. It will also have a dual-core processor. Now, the Prime will supposedly have a 1.5 gigahertz dual-core processor, but in reality, it shouldn't make, that big of a difference. Camera, again, captures 1080p HD video, the front-facing camera. It's also a 4G LTE device. So, I think the Prime, or the Droid Bionic, will definitely be able to compete with these other phones. For the time being, it's the best phone on the market. Should you wait? I get this question a lot. Excuse me. I get this question a lot. People ask, should I get this phone or should I wait until this other phone comes out in a month or two? Because that's when the Prime and the Vigor should be out within a couple of months. I typically say, you know what, it's only a month or 2 months. Just wait, and then when that other phone comes out that you're looking at, then you can compare both of those and see which one you like better. Because a lot of it is not really so much about specs. I think we've gotten to a point, at least for now, until we get to the next leap in technology, but at least for now, we've gotten to a point where spec-wise, most of the Android, high-end super phones are very comparable in terms of specs. It really just comes down to personal preference on things like the UI or the size of the display, or just manufacturers. Some people prefer HTC's hardware designs and some people prefer Motorola's hardware designs. So a lot of it just comes down to personal preference. So if you're wondering, should I get that Bionic or should I wait for something else, I would say, just wait a couple of months. Whenever that phone comes out, you don't have to get that one, but then you'll just be able to compare both of them and then really see which one suits your preferences best. But anyway, Aaron does have the Bionic. He posts his first impressions. You can read that, and he will have his review up probably, sometime early next week. So you can watch that and see if the Bionic is something for you. But moving on to some news that we got was it today or maybe yesterday? We just got this news about So the thing is, Apple's suing Samsung over the design of the Galaxy Tab 10.1. It's kind of been going on for a while. There was a preliminary injunction where, for the time being, sales of the Tab 10.1 were banned in Germany. And then there was another hearing, and this ban has been upheld. So for the time being, there is a ban placed on sales of the Tab 10.1. This is, for all intents and purposes, permanent. Of course, Samsung is planning on appealing the ruling, but it is an official ruling. It's not like the preliminary ruling that we heard earlier. So for the time being, sales of the Tab 10.1 have been banned in Germany. And, if you think about it, for one thing, there's a whole argument of whether or not Apple had the right, or even, did it make sense for them to sue Samsung over this? But that's kind of we've talked about that before. And but really, if you think about it, for the sales to be banned in Germany, it's just one country. It may not seem like it would have that big of an impact, but the problem is that this is really the first ruling of its kind, and generally whenever that happens, it sets a precedent. Now, when you get to lawsuits that may be filed in other countries, other countries have different laws and so on and so forth, but to a certain extent, this ruling could set a precedent for future lawsuits. So, if Apple now decides to sue Samsung, and I believe they are suing Samsung in an Asian country, this lawsuit could set a precedent and have an effect on the ruling. Whereas the judge maybe before might have been inclined to not grant Apple's request, now because of the precedent, they may be inclined to grant Apple's request on a ban. So this could have could cause big problems for Samsung. We'll have to wait and see. Of course, Samsung is going to appeal it. I thought it was interesting, though, that the judge who was, handling the lawsuit, she said, and this was, partial quotes and summarizing what she said, at least I think it was a girl. Yeah, Johanna Brokenhoffman. She said that the court feels that Apple's minimalistic design of the iPad isn't the only way to make a tablet and that other designs are possible. So this was kind of the big issue. It was, okay, maybe they do look similar, but it's not like, Apple patented the rectangle, and, how else is Samsung supposed to design a tablet? And this was the argument that I made, because I made the point that, the design of the iPad is not revolutionary, because if you think about what a tablet is, it's basically a laptop with no keyboard. You take away certain functionalities, but it's basically a laptop with no keyboard. And if you take off the keyboard, every laptop looks the same. It looks like the iPad. So it's not like Apple came up with this design. It was kind of the obvious design. So, based on that, I was like, well, really, the point is, how else could Samsung design it? And really, why else would they design it any other way? It's the only design that makes sense. And Apple didn't come up with that design anyway. So they didn't have any right, to sue. At least that was, my point of view. But apparently the court doesn't agree with me, of course. They do feel like there are other designs that Samsung could have used. And so, we'll see. I would like to see some of those other designs that Samsung could have used. Personally, I think that this lawsuit is not just about the principles of, you stole our design, so we're going to sue you. I think it's obvious that this lawsuit is about money and sales, because if you think about it, why didn't Apple sue, Motorola and Lenovo and Acer and Asus, and all these other people who are making tablets? Well, because they're not selling a lot of them. I think they probably sold like 5 Motorola Zooms. That's an exaggeration, but they didn't sell very many, sorry. Acer, Asus, not, high market manufacturers, but Samsung is. Samsung really competes with Apple in terms of selling the most devices worldwide. The Galaxy Tab is probably one of the most popular honeycomb tablets that's actually, sold, a fair share. And so I think this shows that Apple is really trying to send a message by going after the company, because they could have gone after Asus and Acer and Lenovo because they're all using the same design, but they chose to go after Samsung to kind of send a message. The question is, what message are they trying to send, and what message are they sending? Like, how far will Apple have to go before it starts to lose respect in the eyes of consumers? Will that ever happen? Have they already crossed that line? They're clearly trying to send a message, but the question is, what kind of message are they trying to send, and what message are they sending? Really, only time will tell. So, I can't say that now. Moving on to more lawsuits. HTC sues Apple. This is not a huge story because, again, there's lawsuits every day. One day it's this lawsuit, another day it's the next lawsuit. But the story is that HTC acquired patents from Google. Google bought these patents from Motorola and I believe Palm and a couple of other companies. Google got the patents from them, and then Google gave the patents to HTC so that they could sue Apple. I'm not going to talk very much about that, one, because of time, but also because we really don't know. I mean, it's a war. It's a battle, and this is just, one more. It's a war, and then each lawsuit is one minor battle in the huge war. Eventually, at least I feel, it's got to stop somewhere, good or bad, or wherever it stops. But eventually, someone's got to put an end to it. So this is just one more battle, the HTC suing Apple. But moving on to another major topic, and I get questions about this all the time. I know you guys want to have plenty of updates about about AT&T's acquisition of T-Mobile. Now, last week, I believe we talked about how the Department of Justice has filed a suit to have the merger blocked. Now, the Department of Justice and the FCC, they don't, separately say, okay, you can't merge. The Department of Justice doesn't say you can't do this, and the FCC doesn't say you can't do this. Basically, they decide if it's good or if it would be bad for consumers, and then the FCC can choose to not transfer certain licenses based on their decision. And then obviously if they don't transfer those licenses, then it's basically, there'd be no point to going through with a merger. So they don't necessarily, lay down the law, but they make it to where, okay, we don't think this is a good idea, so we're not going to let you. You can try to, but we're not going to let you. So anyway, that's what happened last week. I don't know why I felt the need to summarize that again. So that's what happened last week. And then Sprint, to basically, kick them while they're down, Sprint files their own lawsuit to block AT&T's acquisition of T-Mobile. And this lawsuit is really pointless because Sprint has already, had their say. They've already made their claims and fought, and they have, they have people. They already have lobbyists that are doing their part. So the lawsuit is really pointless, but it's basically just Sprint saying, jumping on the bandwagon, like, oh, okay, the DOJ, they did, so we're gonna file suit too. So it basically probably will not have any effect, but it just kind of shows how just angry Sprint is about the whole thing. And I got to thinking about it. And there's a lot of things about this that upset me. One, it's people's opinion on it, and I talked about that last week. But, one thing also that I wanted to bring out that you have to think about is, why is Sprint so upset about this merger? Because, it's not like Sprint is the good guy. Sprint is acting like they're the knight in shining armor and they're trying to save the American people and stick up for the consumer. But Sprint is a business just like anybody else. And we all know that if Sprint were in AT&T's shoes, they would have done the same thing, because Sprint wants to make money just like everyone else. And so, you have to think about, okay, it's not like Sprint has good motives either, because nobody in big business does. So if you go back, Sprint was actually interested in purchasing T-Mobile before AT&T stepped in. So apparently Sprint, this isn't just about, standing up for the consumer. For Sprint, apparently they're kind of jealous of the whole deal. At least that's the impression I get after reading over some past news articles, because Sprint wanted to purchase T-Mobile, and now that AT&T is stepping in, yes, this will spell trouble for Sprint. They'll have a hard time staying in the market if the deal does go through. So in a way, it's about competition. But I think really Sprint's just mad that they didn't get to purchase T-Mobile, and AT&T might actually have the chance. And so, if the deal doesn't go through, will Sprint try to do it? Probably. I mean, we already know that they wanted to, and we also know that Sprint wants to move on to LTE for their 4G technology. So, for the time being, Sprint's CDMA and T-Mobile is GSM, but LTE is based off GSM technology. So, a Sprint T-Mobile merger would make a lot of sense. So, if the deal doesn't go through, will they try to purchase T-Mobile? Probably. But it also just gives you a little insight into, I guess, who you should be rooting for. No one is really the good guy here. I think, AT&T, yeah, probably they are being greedy and just trying to, acquire some little company so that they can, be, spectrum hogs and get all they can get. Yeah, I mean, I'm totally okay if you feel that way. But Sprint is trying to do exactly the same thing. So the bottom line is that no one really cares about the consumer. So, I said this last week, even if the AT&T and T-Mobile deal doesn't go through, since no one is really looking out for us anyway, plan B might not be any better than plan A. Now, who might benefit if the deal doesn't go through is T-Mobile. And, as I read more and more quotes from Deutsche Telekom and more articles, it looks like T-Mobile is like totally okay if the deal doesn't go through. In fact, it kind of seems like they're like, oh, you people don't, oh, that's all right. We don't have to. Like, they're not even trying to fight for the deal. And the reason is because they stand to get a lot of money if the deal doesn't go through. I mean, it would be it would be good for Deutsche Telekom if the deal does go through, because they obviously want to get T-Mobile off their hands and, move on to other things. But if the deal doesn't go through, it would be, just as good for them. Because they stand to get about $6 billion worth of assets. Some of that's money and some of it is spectrum, but total it adds up to about $6 billion. Now, there's reports that there are scenarios where AT&T wouldn't have to give them this money, but you better believe that Deutsche Telekom is going to make sure that they follow every contractual agreement to the T to make sure that they're going to get this money. And, like I said, it seems like T-Mobile or Deutsche Telekom doesn't even care if the deal doesn't go through, because, hey, they get money either way. So, again, just some more updates on that. We'll have to see with the Department of Justice, kind of making their move to show how they don't really think the merger is a good idea. That's going to cause a lot of problems. It doesn't necessarily mean that the deal is dead. I've heard a lot of people say that. It doesn't mean that the deal is dead. It's just going to make it a lot more difficult for AT&T to get it done. Now, can it actually happen? Yes. But now where I was like, okay, there's 50-50 chance it could go through, it could not go through. Now it's like kind of, I don't know, maybe like 60-40, 70-30, something like that. There's more of a chance that it won't go through, but it still could. And again, just more developments. We'll keep you guys updated. And we'll just have to see how it goes. But moving on to, we actually have some iPhone rumors. Some rumors about iPhone 5 launch dates, like that's anything new. We actually, I don't know if you guys read this story this week, but I wanted to talk about it because it's pretty interesting. So this random report came out about Windows 8, which is, obviously the next step. Wow, my voice just cracked. That was awesome. Which Windows 8, which is obviously the next step after Windows 7. Now, this is the next step after Windows 7, but also after Windows Phone 7, because the idea is that Windows 8 will work for PCs, phones, and tablets. But anyway, so we kind of seen some developments about this. Microsoft posted, random videos here and there of what they've been working on with Windows 8. And so we were expecting it to come out, sometime. Nobody knew when. But it was like, oh yeah, it's out there and it's going to happen. But then just all of a sudden, out of the blue, this story came out that Samsung quad-core Windows 8 tablets could come out or could be announced next week at Build. Excuse me, I've been talking too much. It happens. My voice just gets dry. So it just, out of the blue, nobody was expecting this. We weren't expecting the OS to be done this early. We weren't expecting them to already have, a Samsung device, built and ready and running the OS. And then whoa, it's a quad-core device. And the story is, this is a rumor, and who knows if it's actually going to happen. We'll find out next week. But the story is that they're actually going to give out the Samsung prototype, I guess, unless they're official hardware. I don't know. But these Samsung prototype Windows 8 tablets to bloggers at the event, which is huge. And no one was expecting that at all. Like I said, we'd only gotten, minor glimpses of what Windows 8 was going to be like. I actually have, just one picture to show you guys. This is the home screen, which you can see it looks basically like Windows Phone 7, except obviously optimized for the larger screen on a tablet, or a PC, but you still have the live tiles. And then there's a video that Microsoft published on their YouTube channel. You can see it on YouTube, obviously. And it actually, the UI is very much like Windows Phone 7. There's just little bitty things that have been customized for a larger display. But anyway, so that's the story, that we may actually see these tablets next week. Now, Evan posted an article on PhoneDog.com, obviously, and the question he raised was, should Microsoft create a Windows Phone tablet? Now, you would think that the obvious answer to that would be yes. And I can tell you, after using Windows Phone 7, on a Phone. I definitely want a Windows 8 tablet. However, the problem is, and this is, what Evan brought out in the article, if you watch the videos where Microsoft kind of gave us a little bit of a look into Windows 8, you can see that it still has the Metro UI. It's still live tiles, very fluid. Every aspect of it is just like Windows Phone. But you can tell once they dig a little bit deeper into the OS, it looks just like Windows 7 on a PC. Like when you're running Excel, it goes back to, you have all the live tiles and everything, and it's beautiful. But then when you go to an actual program, it goes back to, the start button with, that little bar at the bottom, and then the X and the square, the Windows management, those type of things. So you can tell that this is really just the Windows Phone 7 UI laid over just a full PC desktop experience. Now that's fine because some people will want that, but mass consumers will not want that. And this is the thing that I've always, ever since Microsoft detailed their thoughts on a tablet, I knew that this was going to be a problem. I made this comment. The problem that Microsoft is going to face is their viewpoint on what a tablet is and what a PC is, because Apple and therefore every other manufacturer sees tablets and PCs as separate devices with different uses and different functionalities that should remain specific to tablets only, whereas Microsoft sees tablets as PCs and PCs as potential tablets. So Microsoft doesn't believe in creating a tablet that's kind of like a slimmed down version of a UI, take away some of the functionality. It's lighter, it's more user friendly, it's made for a comfortable on the go experience. They don't believe in that. Steve Ballmer himself said that, I think this is a quote from him. He said, "I think PCs are going to continue to shift in form factor. PCs will look different, meaning that eventually PCs will be tablets," which may happen, but okay. And then he goes on to say, "I think there will exist a general purpose device that does everything you want." So you can see their philosophy of a tablet is basically cramming everything that you have in a laptop and a desktop into a tablet, and that's just not going to work. It'll work, but not everyone is going to want that. Excuse me. So, I think Microsoft is capable of building a great tablet. I think Windows Phone 7 shows that they've learned a lot, and they've, I think, gotten past a lot of their pride and really changed a lot. But then you go back to, their thoughts on tablets, and it's like they've completely gone backwards. So, is a Windows 8 tablet a good idea? Absolutely. I would love to see Windows Phone on a tablet. I just don't like the way that Microsoft is planning on doing it, and I think that's going to be a problem. I wish that it wasn't, because I would buy a Windows Phone 7 tablet, but we'll have to see. Again, the rumor is that we're going to see those next week, and so I don't know. I guess we'll find out, but I am anxious to see it. I don't know if it's posted on PhoneDog yet, but I just wrote an article about my 1 month experience with Windows Phone 7. Now, Aaron is doing a 30-day trial with BlackBerry, and then he's gonna, maybe go back to something else. But I chose to go with Windows Phone 7 as, my personal device for, here on out, or until I get the itch to get another phone. So after this month, I'm still going to have Windows Phone 7. But anyway, so I just did, my 1 month trial with it, my thoughts, some negatives, some positives. Through everything, I think Windows Phone 7 is great, and I personally prefer it over Android. I used Android for years, and I would say Android is probably my second favorite OS. It used to be my number one until I tried Windows Phone, but now it's probably my second favorite. But anyway, so you can check out that article whenever it is posted on PhoneDog. But anyway, so like I was saying, I used to make fun of, Windows Mobile just like everybody else, but when you use Windows Phone, it's inspiring, and you can kind of see the potential that it has. I just hope that Microsoft doesn't screw up again the way that they have in the past. So, okay, time for one more story that I want to talk about. Just really quickly, I mentioned that we got some possible launch dates for the iPhone 5. Where did that article go? Okay, yeah, Best Buy. We got this leak from BGR that apparently the retailer is expecting the iPhone 5 to come to Sprint, and that the new handset could be launching in the first week of October. So take note. But then there's this article that I think Taylor posted this article. The question is, what if the iPhone 5 rumors don't pan out? And honestly, this is something that I've been quietly wondering for a long time, because, you know, we all know that ever since the original iPhone came out, it's really been the standard for what a smartphone should be. Now, you know, you can make the argument of, you know, whether some other smartphone is better than the iPhone or just as good as the iPhone, but the bottom line is that you're still comparing it to the iPhone. So the iPhone has been the standard for a long time, but it's starting to have some problems. We have Android devices coming out with large displays, and I know that Apple doesn't agree with having a large display, but a lot of people do. There's a lot of iPhone users who want a larger display, not like a 4.3-inch display, but maybe, 3.8 or maybe 4-inch. There are some iPhone users that want a larger display. 4G. It's pretty certain that the iPhone 5 will not be a 4G device. Now, that could change. Obviously, we really don't know anything solid about the iPhone, but it seems pretty sure that it's not going to be a 4G device. And, you take into consideration that iOS is getting outdated. It has a better notification system, but multitasking is still lacking. Customization is still lacking. And you kind of wonder, okay, if the iPhone 5 does come out and it's not a 4G device, it doesn't have a larger display like some people want, and, maybe a couple of other features that people have been asking for, will it still be able to stand on the fact that, oh, well, it's an iPhone and it's from Apple? I think to a certain extent, yeah, it can stand on that. But how long will it be able to do that? If it's not a 4G device, how many people will not get it? If it doesn't have a larger display, how many people will finally switch to, Android or, Windows Phone, I don't know, or BlackBerry? That's something that I've been quietly wondering for a while now. And it's something that, we really won't really know until, one, the phone is released, because that's when we'll find out the specs, but also, whenever it actually does get into the hands of consumers and then they make the choice. But I do wonder if Apple is making a mistake by waiting too long to put 4G into their phone. If they waited too long to add simple things like an updated notification system, I wonder if they've waited too long to add those things, and if they've waited too long to just release the darn thing. I mean, how many people were like, screw it, I'm tired of waiting for this, I'm just gonna go get some other Android device? And so that's something that I've been wondering. It's a good article. Go check it out. It's called "What If the iPhone 5 Rumors Don't Pan Out?" I think it's by Taylor. I may be wrong. But anyway, so that's all we have time for this week, I believe. I do want to announce that we had a winner for the Greatest Tech Giveaway Ever, drawing 19. We got this winner on Tuesday. We had a drawing last night. I don't know if that person has emailed us yet. But the winner for Tuesday, the name is S. Pipes of Texas, which is cool because I live in Texas. The person said, "I just knew my number had been drawn on one of those days. I forgot to check the drawing. Phew, lucky I did not forget today." So check the numbers. If you can't watch the live drawing, we post the numbers on PhoneDog, so check them there. So congratulations to that winner. We have winners all the time, so you guys feel free to enter in also our One Paw Bandit game. I read this comment the other day. Excuse me, my voice is just getting drier and drier. I read this comment the other day of, there's always people saying that the Greatest Tech Giveaway Ever is a hoax. But this person said that it was a hoax for us to just give tablets to our friends. And I was like, I didn't say this, but I was thinking, if I wanted to give a tablet to my friend, I would just give a tablet to my friend. I mean, there would be no point in creating this massively elaborate hoax to just just so I could give a tablet to my friend. Like, haven't you heard of just going out and buying one and giving it to somebody? Like, I wouldn't just do that. Because, it's not like we're making any money off of this. We don't make any money off of out of all these giveaways that we do. We don't make any money off of them. So I'm like, yeah, right. Okay. So like, I wouldn't just go buy one and give it to my friend. But anyway, there's always somebody that doubts. Haters gonna hate. But anyway, you guys, continue to enter that, and it'll be over at the end of September. And I don't know, then we'll maybe have something else after that. But it is time for open Q&A. I know the past couple of weeks I've been going overtime majorly. Last week was because we had some technical difficulties and I got started later. But I'm trying to keep it back on the 1 hour schedule. So 4:45 open Q&A. You guys feel free to ask me any question that you want to ask. And also on Facebook. I am on Facebook. I will be reading those comments. And let me get my notes ready with my cheat sheet, all the specs and the rumors and all of that. Okay. If you don't want to end up... If you don't want to end up chucking your computer out a window, don't get Windows Mac for the win, okay? Go Sprint. Oh, wow. I am way behind in the comments. Okay. I was wondering why. What Windows Phone 7 device do you have? I have an HTC HD7. That's what I have. I don't think I've ever told you guys what phone I actually have. I get asked that all the time, but I think a lot of guys, once I posted my article about choosing Windows Phone, I think a lot of people figured out which device I had. So there's no mystery now. Before it was like, when you're with Android, there's like 100 options, but if you're with Windows Phone, there's like 4 options. So, okay, if a Windows Phone 8 tablet comes out and it's just a Metro UI over the desktop UI, will you still buy it? No, probably not, because I don't need to carry, I don't need the desktop version, because I have a laptop, and it's portable, so I can carry, and I having the physical keyboard. So no, I don't need that with the tablet. With a tablet, all I need is tablet functionalities. So is it safe to assume that your first recommendation would be HT7? I don't know, not necessarily. I chose that because of, the carrier's coverage, prices, just, several different things. It wasn't because I felt it was the absolute best one. But, then again, the nice thing with Windows Phone 7 is that you can't really go wrong with any of the devices because Microsoft is very strict about the specifications. You can be sure that there are no crap Windows Phone 7 devices out there, and that is reassuring. Wow. Okay, I'm going to set a moderator now just because I saw the same comment 7 times. So, okay, screen name that I recognize. I recognize you. Okay, I'm going to use you as a moderator. So, moderate away. Let me know if you need help, and I'll send another moderator, but, don't go sending everyone as moderators. Okay, do you think the Galaxy S2 is better than the iPhone 5? Well, we really don't know anything about the iPhone 5 at the moment, so I can't say that at all. I just really can't. When is the Samsung Hercules coming out? Samsung Hercules, the Hercules, I'm pretty sure we assume is a T-Mobile version of the Galaxy S2. It's not going to have that name, but so if that is the case, then the only release date we have for that is this fall. We don't have anything else besides that. Do you think the HTC Arrive would be a good device? Yeah, I do. Do you think the Galaxy... Okay, I already answered that. You never answered my question. I'm sorry. Will the T-Mobile Galaxy S2 have AT&T bands? No. Dear Sydney. Okay. How come BlackBerry doesn't buy WebOS since they already stole it? QNX. Well, I'm sure BlackBerry wouldn't. I'm sure RIM wouldn't admit that they stole several of the features, but BlackBerry had the chance to buy WebOS and they chose not to. I don't think it would make sense for BlackBerry to buy WebOS just because, they already have their own operating system. I guess they could integrate the two OSs since they are very similar. But, since they are so similar, it's not really necessary. I mean, I think the biggest positive that would come of it would just be the patent portfolio that Palm has, or that HP has. But I don't know. WebOS needs to live. Yes. iPhone 5 will be coming to Sprint, AT&T, and Verizon. That's a rumor. We haven't actually confirmed any of that. Even though it's pretty sure, but still, we're not sure if it's coming to Sprint. Why must she waste her breath? I don't know. Use your mod powers and delete some comments. I don't know. That's why I set moderators. Yeah, AJ, you can handle that. Can you see any of this? Yes. Do you think the Bolds 9930 is overpriced? Yes. Well, maybe not. If you consider the device as just a device and, the build quality and all of that, maybe it's not overpriced. Maybe it is a little bit, but, not too much. But when you consider the fact that they need to sell phones and that RIM is already having a hard time, I think it was a bad idea. Whether it's overpriced or not, I think it was a bad idea for RIM to price it that high. Okay, let me head over to our Facebook page to see if there's any questions there. Okay, we have one from Jonathan Morris. Samsung Infuse 4G versus LG Thrill versus Sony Xperia Play. Your thoughts? The LG Thrill. Okay, let me get a quick refresh of the specs for these devices. Okay, so we have a dual-core processor, 4.3-inch display. Okay, and the Xperia Play has a 1 gigahertz processor. And then the Samsung Infuse. The Samsung Infuse has just a 1 gigahertz processor, right? There are so many devices. I can't keep all of the specs straight. Specs. Infuse. 1.2 gigahertz. So I would say that the Thrill is probably the better phone. Now, I'm not a big fan of LG's UI, but just based on specs, the Thrill has a dual-core processor, so I would be more inclined to lean towards that one. So the Xperia Play, it's geared towards gamers. If you don't do a lot of gaming, then don't even consider it, because it's not worth it to carry on that extra bulk, and there is a lot of extra bulk with the Xperia Play. But, then at the same time, most mobile gamers probably will buy an actual gaming device, like a PSP or a PSP Go, which is going to offer, better games, better performance. Xperia Play is a great idea, but it's still just gaming on a cell phone. And so, I would consider the Thrill. Okay, which is better, the HTC Inspire or the Samsung Infuse? Okay, so I just read about the Infuse and the HTC Inspire. I know that one. They're actually like about the same phone, aren't they? Again, there's hundreds of Android phones, so I can't remember the specifications for every single one. Okay, Inspire 4.3-inch display, Super LCD. 8 megapixel camera, 1 gigahertz Scorpion processor, and then the Inspire or the Infuse is basically the same thing. The Infuse has a larger display and it's a Super AMOLED display. So, take that as, which one you prefer. Really, I think the bottom line, it just comes down to which UI you prefer. You have HTC Sense versus Samsung TouchWiz. Really, you can't go wrong with either phone. So really, it's just which UI do you prefer, and then do you like having that larger display, or would you prefer the Inspire's kind of not small display, but it's smaller than the Infuse. Samsung cleaner interface and HTC UI takes up too much memory. Well, there you go. Okay, back to Ustream. Excuse me, sorry. Do you think the Galaxy S2... Wow, did I not answer that like 5 minutes ago? Are you the same person that asked that like 10 times? If you're not, sorry. Okay, how do you feel about the iPhone 5 being lost again after last year? Some people think that it's a marketing scam by Apple, that like they do it on purpose, just to build hype. I don't necessarily know if that's true, because it's not like they need more hype. How do I feel about it? If it is just a hoax, then, whatever. I don't care. If it isn't, then you're like, wow, Apple, I mean, did you not learn anything from last year? So either way, it's not a big deal because we don't know where the phone is, so it's not like we can get a look at it. Do you think the HTC's Titan and HTC Radar will have 4G? No, we already know that they are. I'm pretty sure they're not 4G devices unless HTC changes it when they come to the US. But as far as we know, they're not 4G devices. Okay. Wow, I'm late. Yeah, Cam, you're a little late, but that's all right. What about that rumor about Apple pretending to be San Francisco police? Any truth in that? Well, so there was the rumor that so the iPhone 5 was lost, and then they tracked it, and then when they got to the home, they were like, we're the police, we're going to search your house or apartment. So the rumor, first it was like the police searched the house, and then there was a rumor that it wasn't actually the police, it was Apple employees pretending to be police, and they searched the house. But then I heard that it was the police and the Apple employees, and the police searched the house, but they also allowed the Apple employees to search the house as well. Now, I don't know what the law is on that, but that would clarify maybe the confusion. But still, I'm not entirely sure what happened, but I heard the police, and then it was Apple impersonating, and then that was the last update that I heard. So that seems like it may have explained everything. What do you think is the limit for phone screen size? Personally, I don't really like anything over 4 inches. Like the device I have right now is 4.3 inches, and I think that's probably my limit. 4.5, I don't know. I mean, I maybe could get used to it, but I think like these 5-inch displays, like the Galaxy Note, the Dell Streak, I think that's too large. Okay, let me go back over to Facebook and see if there's any more questions. That's from 3 minutes ago. Sometimes it takes a minute to refresh, but I don't think we have any more. Okay, back over to Ustream. From what you know, HTC Vigor or Nexus Prime? I'm on Verizon. You know what I want to do? Sometimes on Ustream you can check like how many viewers there are, but I'd have to go to ustream.com. Okay. From what I know, Vigor or Nexus Prime? HTC Vigor. Let me see. What do we have for the Vigor? 4.3-inch display, 1.5 gigahertz dual-core processor, 8-megapixel camera, Android 2.3 with Sense 3.5, and Beats by Dr. Dre. Really, actually, they're pretty comparable. The Samsung Galaxy or Nexus Prime, Galaxy Prime, whatever the crap it is, it's going to have a larger display and a super AMOLED HD display, so maybe the display will be more impressive. But still, 1.5 gigahertz dual-core processor, camera. It will ship with ice cream sandwich. So I think the Nexus Prime might edge out the Vigor just ever so slightly. But really, if you want to have updates the fastest and you like stock Android and you're into like the large, beautiful displays, the Nexus Prime definitely is probably the best phone for you. But again, the Vigor has basically the same specs, and it ships with Beats by Dr. Dre technology. Now, whether that's going to be headphones or just an improved sound chip, who knows? But, if you're into that, multimedia and listening to music, then the Vigor might be better. But I think the Nexus Prime might edge it out just ever so slightly. Sydney, if you're not on right, yeah, TIP Cam. Yeah, we use Ustream Producer because it allows us to, post all the, have all the screenshots that I post up there every once in a while and all that weird stuff. I actually don't really like Ustream Producer, but it's what we use. Will Ice Cream Sandwich be the last big Android update since it's supposed to tie everything together? The last big one, maybe it might be the point where Android finally gets to, consumer friendly, pretty. Right now, I've said this before, and I know my sister just texted me. She's getting the Nexus S. She's on Sprint. She's getting the Nexus S 4G. So that's pretty cool. Everybody say congratulations. That's pretty cool. Okay, I'll text her later. But anyway, what was I talking about? I don't even know. Oh yeah, like I've said this, and I know other people have said this too. Android looks like a beta OS. Now I know like you may not like me saying that, and I used Android for several years, and whenever people would say that, I was like, "What are you, crazy? Have you used Android? It's beautiful." But once you try something else and you go back to Android, you're like, wow, this looks like a beta OS. So Ice Cream Sandwich, my voice cracked again. That's so awesome. Ice Cream Sandwich might be the version where it finally becomes pretty. If so, then from there on out, it might just be, minor updates or added features here and there. So you may be right about that. I'm not sure. But anyway, it is 5 o'clock, guys, which means that the stream is over. Our time is up. I'm sorry, guys, that puberty. I don't know. My voice cracks a lot. It's not puberty. I'm 23, but, it happens. It's just after I talk for an hour, my voice gets really dry. Anyway, but thanks, guys, for coming. And if you missed any of this, you can check out the recording on YouTube. Again, if you're watching this on YouTube, thanks for watching. Leave your comments on YouTube, and I'll try to, answer any questions that you have. And I will see you guys next Friday. Same time, 5 p.m. Eastern time on our Ustream channel and on Facebook or on PhoneDog.com if you're watching it there. I don't think there's anything else to say. Hopefully next week I'll have a pop filter, but I don't know. Shipping is sometimes questionable. But anyway, I'll see you guys later. Bye.